But here's a cheers to you guys, okay? Another day, another bender, no retreat and no surrender. Thank you all. Have a great time, and I will see you on Monday. What we did have happening on Monday was I did do both a talk on I&E Live on some cybersecurity practices that we can do to somewhat prepare or at least improve our posture or threat posture. And then we also have things that then I went on and I actually started up Jack of all trades just on a whim. Decided that I needed to stop worrying about it and just kind of focus and do it. So turned on the camera and started building stuff for my own site. And what I ended up doing was building stuff for Josh's because I wasn't really liking where my stuff was going. But it's still great. I was able to go through using Adobe After Effects and some free stuff that I have, and I was able to build out. I really like the intro. So, Carrie Chasen, found out I could get into cyber by going into Internet of Things and the cloud, which could lead to cyber. What do you think about that route? I think that's a very legitimate route. You can also go into cyber. I mean, right now, if you just want to get into IT in general, go cloud. It is extremely, there's a big need right now for cloud technicians. Anybody that has any form of cloud in their experience or whatever else, that's where not to say that there's not a hiring trend in cybersecurity right now, but yeah, having a cloud background is really beneficial right now because with the work from pandemic forcing a lot of people to work from home, a lot of companies ended up having to rapidly deploy to the cloud in an unexpected manner. So now all the people that could do that job got snatched up. I apologize, guys. I don't know what's going on with my RBG lights behind me, but they aren't doing much of the RBG stuff, are they? They're just kind of stuck. There we go. But yeah, so definitely a lot of ways to go for cloud. Mark Mann, hello from down under. And Carl Bent turning in from New Zealand. Excellent, guys. Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out. Having a good time tonight. But yeah, so I'm going to be doing that show over on Twitch. Part of the reason is because I think that's going to help us long term with discoverability and get more people in the door and see what we can do to help. So, I think we can go over there, hang out for a little bit, and I'm like, we can all agree that Twitch is a little unprofessional, so I'm okay being unprofessional over there. For this week, we're going to go on to resumes and recruiters. Now, I'm not going to be pulling up a resume because Neil's done beat resume reviews into the ground. That is, he's got so many videos on those. I will say and remind you guys that I am available if you want any help or need me to take a look at anything. I'm fully available. I am currently a hiring manager as well, so I have a couple of years of experience doing this stuff. Yeah. With that, let's take a look. The financial difference in working hours of a tech developer in general and a cybersecurity guy, maybe a security architect or a pen tester. So realistically, there's a bit of a difference between the term architect versus engineer. Realistically, I think the role that you're looking for is called an engineer. In most cases, you become an architect after you understand many, or at least lead architect, or however you want to put it, after many years of working in IT, because what it means is you have a specialization. It's kind of like having an architect that can understand how to build the entirety of a building, right? They understand the lights, they understand the plumbing, they understand where the different needs need to go, and they also understand the engineering requirements, which I'm not even going to go into the physics of that because that's I don't know. I just know that they understand that stuff, right? When it comes to IT architecture, though, you do long-term project planning that aligns with strategic business goals. So you're not just evaluating a single system. You're helping them move entire massive projects forward, if you will. So it could be, everything from, you know, deciding on what a level of acceptable risk is. And then if you do an audit of your entire enterprise and you find yourself to be lacking, you then, put together an entire plan over the next course of the 2 to 5 years of how you're going to move in this direction to improve that, come up to that level of actual risk tolerance that the company has agreed on as far as the risk appetite goes. The financial difference and working hour difference of a tech developer versus a cybersecurity person. Let's talk about that. Developers, from what I understand, they have a bit more, I can't say that they have a bit more flexible schedule because it just depends on the type of work you're doing realistically. I mean, you can do contract, freelance work as a developer much, much easier than you can if you're like a cybersecurity guy, right? Cybersecurity is a little more difficult in that you have to understand usually the security posture of somewhere. You can't just jump into projects in the middle of it, stuff like that. However, I think I'm not going to say that the money's outlook's better either, because if you're a coder and you get it with the right project and the company sells and you're part of that coding team and you've got investment, then you're going to make a lot of money. There's a lot of people that work at Google that all they do is just sit around waiting for, the investment, and occasionally they'll jump on a project that seems interesting. You know what I mean? Also, all sorts of stuff like that, right? But I think the real question here that you should look at, because also when it comes to working hours for cybersecurity, are there some really bad ones? Yeah. If you are in the incident response space, you can get on some shifts that are 12 hours a day and it's overnight. I've done that. Those shifts suck. But that after, doing that for 6 months to a year, you learn a lot and you get a lot more access and you're able to go to other jobs and positions and, get better stuff. So yeah, let's definitely difference in working hours between tech and then like general cybersecurity individual. Pen testing is going to be completely different because it just depends on. You can have a regular 9 to 5 if you're working in an enterprise environment and you're or an MSSP, or you could have just, for 3 days out of the week, you have insane hours and then you don't work the rest of the week, or you do minimal stuff the rest of the week. Just depends on what part of the mission set you're in too. I've known a lot of red teamers though that it was just a 9 to 5 job for them. They clock in, check on their implants and beacons, give a report at the end of the week, and they're out. But yeah, I think instead of the working hours thing, because it's tech, there's always a different project, always different uses. I think it's a better thing to look at more so what do you like? Because I promise you, coding is a lot different than any form of cybersecurity. So, though cybersecurity uses a lot of coding, just straight coding and development work on a daily basis is something different. All right. So I'm going to cover real quick. Wow, I had a complete just brain malfunction there. I'm going to cover real quick. Just to remind you on resumes, and then we're going to actually deep dive this week into dealing with recruiters, because I see a question on there on lowball offers and what job requires traveling, stuff like that. So we'll get to those in just a second. So resumes, if you are unfamiliar with this channel, there is plenty of videos on how to build a resume reviews, things that they get torn apart. But let's backtrack a little bit and just go to where we started, which I need to go through those videos out. But anyway, we started out, how do you do a market search and identify what it is that you want to do in cybersecurity? Once you identify what it is you want to do, we talked about how to create SEO keyword lists that would be important as you set up your LinkedIn. We then talked about taking these lists and showing from where you would generate this stuff, where would you put these in the listing order in your actual LinkedIn buyout, everything. Now, having said that, what's the next part? Well, you also want to do the same thing with your resume. You generally want to focus on part of your header info. Having a location is fine if you just want to do a generalized, so for example, mine says New York, New York, because I am near New York, New York, right? So no, I don't see, especially in tech, I don't really even personally, only thing I ask people is do you want to be remote or are you actually looking to work in an office? That's basically what I ask people anymore. Because yeah, it can be extremely varied. With that, definitely, if you have a LinkedIn, I would actually add that into your header information on the top. I would also include, personally, I don't mind including my, because I've built the brand around it. I don't mind including my username for Twitter or Instagram. That's right. I don't mind including I don't mind if my boss was to go and look at my Twitter because I've built that Twitter to be for my professional profile, right? With the occasional random rant, but anyway, what else? Oh, so your statements of experience. So you could do, a blurb of I'm working to be this, I'm doing that. That's fine. Just make sure that it tells a good story about yourself. Don't just fill it in with I have so many years of this experience and I'm looking for this role. Really, I should be able to read it, and that should be a 30-second elevator pitch of a read. That immediate blurb. Following that, basic experience followed by certifications, education, rounds out the resumes. Like I said, there's so many videos on this channel. No need for me to break into and curtail them. Let's talk about, though, what happens when you guys do all this work and you start getting calls, right? It sounds, insane. But what happens when you start getting calls? What happens when you're the individual that the recruiter's reaching out to and is like, hey, I want you to apply for something. Okay. And with that, obfuscated, I like the name, obfuscated. How to negotiate the lowball offers. Let's talk about that as well. Jay Simpson, first time here. Thanks for putting this on. Absolutely. And don't feel free at any point, like we said, throw a Q in front of your questions, throw them in chat, and the mods will send them my way. So good to hear from you guys. So first off, let's talk about the difference between internal and external recruiting companies, as well as what are contracts. Okay. We'll start with the recruiters. So the recruiters would be the individuals that are coming to you with potential offers or deals. Now, the thing you have to know about recruiting is usually recruiters will get some form of compensation for finding individuals. In that it is very similar that, a good recruiter will make sure that you're taken care of and that your skill set and what you're looking for out of a career position matches you with a job really, really well. Okay? I said that's a very good recruiter. Some recruiters will do none of that. I've gotten people that have hit me up on LinkedIn because I look like a good fit for Applebee's as a general manager, apparently. I don't even have anything restaurant experience listed on my LinkedIn. I just realized that we don't have a certain thing is not working the way it should be. My bad. 1 second. Things are broken. Oh no, oh no. Sorry guys. Well, I apologize real quick. Oh, they moved all the stuff on me. There it is, timers. There we go. I did not turn on my own timer today. I apologize, guys. So, when you deal with recruiters, there's, there are some that, like I said, they're good. they're aiming for what it is, and you also have some that the ones that I want to talk about though is the difference between internal recruiters and external recruiters. Sorry, I got very distracted there for a second. With the use of internal recruiters, that would usually mean that this is somebody that works for HR or under HR, or has been they might be a third party recruiting service, but they are being paid by the company to go out and find candidates for this particular job role to bring them in to a certain area. Okay? Really easy. You also have full-on external recruiting services, which with which the external recruiting services generally will start searching for, do you have a need, or they'll have existing relationships with particular companies or consumers, and they will be paid based on placing you in that job role. Now, what can they be paid? Well, it can vary. Sometimes it can be 5, it can be all the way up to 20% of the actual, like, whatever your pay is going to be. So if your pay was, let's say $100,000 a year, because I can do the math off the top of my head, their payout might be 10 to 20 grand as a finder's fee, quote unquote, if you will. And then there's all sorts of other structures and ways that can break out, right? As you get to be more senior level, there might be recruiters that you work with regularly. You can also have individuals that will find bonus fees or fee structures, things like that. Like, you can even have fees that you're given as an employee if you recruit somebody else yourself and bring them into the company. Usually those are much smaller, only a couple $100, upwards of maybe 1,000, but still. What's the difference, and what should you guys know about with those two? The difference is that what should you know about? When you have the external recruiters, if they are not actively filling for a job role, you have to be cautious with any type of agreement that you may sign or not sign. With everything, guys, that you should be doing already, because I know we have a really bad habit in our history to just hit accept all for the, EULAs, the end user licensing agreements and things like that. When it comes to your career field, make sure you really read the documents that you sign, because what you don't want to find in there is some type of exclusivity agreement that says that you can only work with this recruiter for whatever regional area or within whatever market space or something else like that. That's one that I've been seeing recently. Some other scams might also include if they are recruiting for, you know what, let me go ahead and put that in here. We will get to scams in a second, things to worry about whenever you're looking for these recruitments and these ads that you're going to see on LinkedIn or Indeed and these types of engagements. Anyway, so from the internal and the external thing, the other thing that you want to look for is, or you want to ask is, as you're going through the job role, you want to make sure and do a sniff test is, does this make sense? Does this role make sense for me? Another great question to ask recruiters is there any form of, that I should know about HR that I can or cannot apply for job roles? And will that, negate me from other future roles? What does that mean? If you have zero cloud experience and they're trying to put you up for a cloud engineer role, however, they might have like an incident response or incident analysis job that is up where you want to be at. Some companies will say that if you interview for this job, you can't interview for another 6 months. That's part of their process. That's part of their HR, right? So what you'll originally have is what's called a screening call. So some of the questions that you should have in the screening call while they're pitching you this job is, you should know the location. You should be asking questions about whether or not, where's the location? Is this an internal job? Do you work for the company directly, or are you a recruiter? If you're a recruiter, what type of recruiter are you? Are you being asked to go and search for this, or are you just going and whatever else? some good questions to talk about and ask. Um, yeah, let's go ahead and take another question real quick. Fraser, do me a favor and obfuscated. We'll talk about negotiation in a second, so leave that one unmarked. Leonardo Gutierrez, I'm so sorry, I definitely butchered that. Leonardo Gutierrez, what job requires the most traveling? If you're in anything that's consulting, odds are you're going to be traveling a lot. Consulting, auditing, what else? Those forms primarily are really the big ones. How do you check for requirements for a job? Going to job sites and checking out listing and their requirements, or is there some other way? No, Vibester, that's the way. Go check out the job requirements. It should be very well listed. It's one of the first things you're supposed to write out whenever you're writing a job description is what must they be able to do, right? What would you like them to do? And then, roundabout what's the job, what's everything else like that, all sorts of stuff. And I will be posting up the video from 2 weeks ago when we went over what it is to do marketing stuff. I will make sure I get that posted up this week. And I'm trying to find a good schedule of editing and stuff, and it can be a little bit of a pain. So I've seen that using my experience in another field, graphic design, Notisan, could be useful in my CyberSec LinkedIn profile, but I feel my profile might be confusing recruiters. Any advice? So definitely start. So when you talk about your graphic design experience in your LinkedIn, make sure that you are talking about the skills that are relevant to the position that the recruiters are looking for, right? Don't just talk about, if you're gonna talk about graphic design, make sure you talk about the communication that you're able to have with the ongoing, clients. Wow, I don't know why I forgot that word. The clientele themselves. And you can also talk about the projects that you managed or the deadlines that you met or different forms of work. You just got to be able to, when you're moving from one to another job field, you have to change your SEO words and you have to change what it is that you're talking about and focus it on the technology, right? So in that, I would say, I worked with and maintained computer systems for the graphic design, because that might be something else that you're involved with. Okay. So we've talked about the internal and external recruiters. Now let's talk about the two different types of job roles that you generally have to fill, which are the use of contracting versus full-time headcount employee. And why do we have two different types? And why will you find that in tech a lot? Okay, so let's start with what everyone's kind of aware of, which is full-time employment. You get hired by a company, you work directly for that company, you deal with the internal company's HR process and systems, you get benefits through the company, everything is handled with them directly, all right? That's very, very familiar for a lot of people, very, very common for a lot of people, especially if you've had any form of, restaurant industry job or service level job at a mall with these companies, right? You're a sales rep or whatever else, and you get hired by the store and you work for that store and you work right there locally. Really easy to do, right? Why don't we see this as much in tech? Well, we see a second type of job very frequently in tech called contracting. Now, when it comes to business, it can be easier to gain money for headcount or roles via a contracting position, in which you every 6 months you basically go, I need somebody to do this, and every 6 months that contract has to be reevaluated. Is the job getting done? Is the job getting met by the contract? Yes, it is. Continue the contract up. Many companies, they do their planning out fiscally, by the year, sometimes multiple years, definitely by the quarter. So if there is something that needs to be done for IT and tech, usually that need to be planned and ready to go at the start of the new year. So that way money could be allocated appropriately to the team necessary, and then they would expand the headcount. Instead, um, what we see a lot is because the speed of technology, these job fields shift and change a lot. We'll see a lot more individuals utilizing contracts. On top of that, it also has, and I'm not going to get into tax I'm not going to get into the tax ramifications because there's different ways that companies can benefit from utilizing contract work over full-time employees, which can be as simple as, increasing headcount could mean that the company is then liable to provide greater amount of benefits or certain type of benefits or certain type of median pay. A couple other things too. I am not a business. I am not a business expert, so I'm not going to talk about that per se, but more so just need to say contracting used frequently. Now, what are some things to consider with contracting? Well, off the top of my head is some contracts don't come with benefits. That means healthcare would be something you have to pay for yourself. Healthcare, any form of sick days or leave, usually you just don't get paid for those days. Sometimes the contract can work out to be almost at an hourly grouping. Could also be that, you go to do work and then the work in the contract that you're on doesn't necessarily meet up or match up with your skills or expertise. So with contracts, you have to really, really, really read the fine lines as to what it is that you're signing up for and you're getting involved in. Now, there's also different types of contracts too. Again, I'm not going to go into a full-on business course here, but government contracting is a lot different than doing just private business contracting, than doing a whole other, different form of it. You can also have provisions of the contract work that limit your capabilities to leave or engage or find yourself legally liable for funds should you fail to provide as the contract has you to. If you sign certain contracts that say you must provide 6 months worth of work and this must be done by 6 months, and you fall outside of that, you could be held legally liable, meaning you would either have to refund the portion of the work that isn't done yet or the entire thing, depending on how the contract's written. So again, you got to be aware that this contracting is a type of gig. Now, there are positives to contracting. I'm not going to sit here and say that contracting completely sucks. It's for the birds. It's not. Positives of contracting are it allows us as individuals in business to be more flexible in our use of people. It allows us to find individuals with skills, allows us to be a bit more flexible with regionality of individuals as well. Some forms of full-time employment in order to work, sometimes with individuals on a global perspective, some countries require that you have offices regionally within their country, right? So if you don't have an office there, but you want to work with a developer, that's where they'd come in as a contractor. So that way it meets legal requirements. That's another method. So there are benefits there. Also, you'll generally find more money contracting. It's because you're being asked to do something that's very special as opposed to filling into a head count. But like I said, generally speaking, contracts are easier to end as well. So there's a little give and take there. So I see a bunch of questions coming in. Let's take a look. Jay Simpson, when you're being presented with a potential candidate from a recruiter as a hiring manager, what is one thing that you love to see, something that makes you want to meet them? I like to see a story on the page. And what I mean by that is, I'm not talking about the same stories whenever I go to find a recipe online and I have to scroll through the entire, it was an autumn day and we were walking by a graveyard. It's like, just tell me how to make the snickerdoodles. Anyway, I'm sure those of you wearing headphones right now are awake. The Yeah, so with that, the thing I like to see when it comes to the resumes is I like to be able to read through a resume and see a good work history moving towards the area of expertise that I need. Meaning that, statement right up front, where your targets in life, where your target goals for, where you want to work at or how you want to work later on. And, also want to know, or if, right now I'm in instruction. So it's going to be like, I really do believe in teaching people. I really get a sense of joy, or, I feel very full doing that type of work when I see somebody eyes light up when they get it. I like seeing that stuff. I also like seeing a solid work history. I generally don't like, if I'm not going to say that it negates everything. If you have gaps of time in your employment, if you have only a couple months here, a couple months there with it, but I will ask you about them, and I'll probably ask you, and you could say something like, I had medical exceptions. Cool. You know what? Not my business. That's fine. But it looks like you got out of that real fine, and now you're back into this. Like, I don't need a full on life story about what the explanation is behind those gaps, right? Just that, unfortunately, there was a medical issue that in my family that I was taking care of, so I had to do that. Cool. Wonderful. If I see multiple areas where you've only been 6 months here, 6 months there, or if I've seen contractors that 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, all in a row, and they're on a completely different company every single time. That doesn't look good either. Usually companies, if they like you as an employee, or if you did really good on the contract, they'll usually move you over to another contract. Like that company didn't wrap up, right? So what that looks like to me is, it looks like they did 1 year contract and they just let the contract expire and chose not to renew, which also shows that, there's something that might be an issue there. Bayou, what is a Love Me book and how should it be used in job search application process? We'll get to that. I've got mine sitting behind me so I can show you guys in a second. So we talked about the difference between internal, external recruiters. We talked about the utilizing contractors versus full-time positions and the different types of positions you can sit in. One of the things I wanted to talk about was both scams and internships, which can also, you have to be wary of internships as well. Okay, so what are the scams? Well, the scams that you run into is, and this goes to, somebody asked, obfuscated how to negotiate a low ball offer. Okay, all of this works together. You really have to look at what it is that you're signing up for, you're agreeing to within these documents. Then how is the company winning? How are you winning? Right? Are you being paid a fair market rate? If you're not, then you can come back and you can counteroffer. Just counteroffer with what is a fair price. Put your line in the sand. Unless you absolutely have to go and get a job, or you absolutely need, like, if beggars can't be choosers. So if there is a lowball offer, you can tell them what your living requirements are, is what we call, what I use the term a lot, target pay. What target pay do you need? Just so that way I know roundabout what it is that we need to do. Now, if we're talking about within 10 grand, which I know that sounds like a lot of people like, oh my God, 10 grand would be amazing. I'm sorry, not 10 grand. If we're within 5 grand back and forth over a price, you shouldn't be that worried about stuff like that, because when you break out the 5 grand per a monthly basis, in total, you're looking at about approximately $400 a month, right? If you go out per pay period, you're talking about $200 a check. At that point, you might be able to make that up again in benefits and, allocation, things like that. It just depends. If you're talking about straight up, they're barely allowing you to live, eat and breathe and exist. You're not even sure how you would be able to drive into that workplace to do the work. then yeah, that's something that you're going to have to definitely put your foot down and say, hey, no, this isn't going to work for me. It's way too low there. We're going to need to go to at least this point. I kind of saw a comment fly by. Know your worth. Yes, Dev. Know your worth. 100%. Don't be afraid to ask for it either. Now, I'll tell you that I made the mistake once of talking myself out of a job role that probably would have been better for me. But one of the ways was, I'll even tell you the numbers. As I got out of the Marine Corps, I thought I knew my worth a lot better than what I did, because I got out of the Marine Corps and I was in DC, and I was being offered positions, placements, everything else like that for around. So I started working a job in DC that was around 130, 135. And I did the math, and I was like, okay, for me to go and live in Manhattan with the cost of living adjustment, it's going to be this much. So I was looking for jobs at around 160 to 170 is where I was looking for a job market. Did not get that job at all. And I actually, if I had been paid more attention to the compensation package, there was an offer out there for me that was around 140, so it would have been made $5,000 more. And the company had full benefits package that included full health just off the bat. Sounds really great, right? It probably was. I wouldn't know. And because I was pitching 160, 165, nobody wanted to hear from me anymore. I got walked out of more than a couple. Like, yeah, you'll hear from us. Never did. But yeah, it was definitely something to be considerate about. Let's take a look at where else the scam issues. So I kind of got off track there, but what we were talking about is scams. Some of the ways that people can scam is that if you sign particular agreements, as I said, you can end up going and working for them for almost nothing, because they are, quote unquote, they're training you, and they're going to call it an internship or a training or whatever else. And another way that I've seen companies try and get individuals is, sign up for this. We'll train you for the whole job. You can sit in this role and do this role and do this job and everything else like that. But when you read the fine print, it says that you have to work for that company 2 years, or else for the training that you've done, you will then owe them like $1,000 a month or something like that. There can be some traps. We have actually found more than a couple of them working in this channel before. I'm sure some people in the chat have some horror stories. Yeah. Let's go ahead and pivot. We have some good questions in here. Interview experiences. Love me. Obfuscated. When you get a verbal offer, can you tell them to send you a written offer, then say, give me a couple days to get back? Absolutely. Absolutely. That is 100% something you can do. Generally speaking, I don't even let my current employer know I'm leaving until I have a signed written offer. Right? But yeah, that's exactly something you could take a look at is, hey, yeah, that sounds good. Send over the written offer real quick, and let me read over it. I'll get back to you within like a day or two. Should be all right with that. That needs to go over there because that is making noise. All right. Talked about obfuscated. Talked about that Love Me book. I want to show you guys something called a Love Me book that goes into know your worth, right? So we were just talking about knowing your worth and knowing what you are worth. And how do you figure that out? You look at, I don't generally tell people to say, compare yourselves to, but it's better to go and find the job roles that you would fit well into and see what they're offering. Based on that, it's also good to talk to your professional network and be like, what are you roundabout at getting paid for, this is the job role I want to be in. Things like that. Especially if you have some within the regional area, it would make sense. Now, as part of knowing your worth is being able to demonstrate your worth. So you can make these things. I call them a Love Me book. What this is it is a full-on, I'm sure there's probably a different camera view I could have done, but it is a full-on, and I'm trying to find, here we go. Trying to find the page. It is a full-on book that has all of my, when I was in the Marines, it has all my written reports, evaluations. It has multiple certificates of training for external courses, SANS, whatever else, NRC. All my external coursework goes into here as far as certificates go. Any internal courseware that I had that I did when I was with the company or with a, what do you call it? If it came with any form of certificate of completion, it went into this book. And I categorized it by time zone as well. Make things extremely easy. I even had a printout of, hold on, I'm trying to pull this up, all of the digital trainings that I took while I was in the military. Outside of military stuff, I had a section for any letters of recommendation that I ever received from people. Example of digital incident reports that I had filled out. I keep going, but I think you get the point. There's a copy of my CISSP in here. There's a copy of any professional certification, especially the ones that are big money. Whenever I walk into any form of, and there is a digitized version of this as well. Whenever I walk into any form of a job interview, I have this book on me. I keep this thing on me, ready to go. That's how I remember my worth. I don't need help reminding myself, but it's really easy just to, I can show you this example right here. I'm going to need that back, of course, but there you go. There's the example. It also, there's times where it's nice just even as a professional to sit back and remind yourself, like, I used to be fucking stellar. What happened? Joking, but legitimately though, it's good to remind yourself. It's good to keep a nice book. And like I say, if you walk into an interview prepared, you have your resume, it looks nice, whatever else, even if it's all digital, you've sent them the resume and you're sitting back, you have in hand, I've done this. And it is a binder that shows really good, examples of that. First page of that is a contact list of where you can go and find me. So my LinkedIn, if I was to do any form of coding, there'd be access to my GitHub page, whatever else. Also, like I told you about digital branding, you could put on Linktree for free, you can put in a whole list of all of your professional items. Nowadays, you don't even need a business card. You just realistically just need to send somebody a QR code and to get access to your Linktree. They can go from there and take a look at you as a potential candidate. We work in IT, we work in digital. It's nothing to create a page about yourself. So let's take a look at some of these other questions. Leonardo Gutierrez, what job requires the most traveling? I think I answered that one already, but I'm just going to go ahead and repeat it. Contractor work, any type of auditing work, any form of, also any form of, if you are a third-party service provider to larger companies, very common for you to go on site. And that can be even just to show, to be able to answer questions for them. Can I share some of my interview experiences? I can. Vibester, we'll get to that in 1 second. IT, do you have any programming sample codes in that book you have made? I used to, right? But the problem with coding samples is, you know, they don't print out very well. You know what I mean? Like those ones are a little harder. I've thought about carrying a. So what I did used to do is I carried a USB stick, and I would have samples of my projects on there as well. So I would, if they wanted to gain access to that, they would totally be able to. Let's take a look. Can we share some of the interview experiences? Yeah, I can share a bunch of interview experiences. And let's talk about in all of this what we're leading to, and we'll get into some interview stories in 1 second. But the Love Me book, the GitHub repository, the individualized attention to I am me, and this is my person or my professional persona, and this is the work I do, right? All of that in total between LinkedIn. You can even have professional Twitter as long as you are somebody that's even keeled enough not to get into a flame war on there. All of this just goes to not only build your worth, but even just display it for others to see it, right? Because if I don't know you from Adam, then I need to start understanding that you get what I'm talking about. So my interview experience is, well, obviously I've been in interviews, and I also have interview experience where I've been in charge of interviews. So some of the interviews that I've been in charge of, I've had great, outstanding interviews, and I've had bad interviews. Some of the great and outstanding ones that blew me away, really blew me away. I asked them to tell me a story, and about malware or ransomware or something that they had found. That would be interesting, or that they found something. What was the time that they got it, or something like that. They ended up telling me a full-on story about a multinational malware strain that they were able to track and get control of, and everything else like that. That ended up being ransomware, and they remember watching it being hit and all this, and they just went into so much great information. Some other stuff. Some bad examples. I always ask people to tell me a little bit about themselves. Now, that is definitely a gateway for me. If I ask you to tell me a bit about yourself, you should definitely have about 30 seconds that you've prepared where you are able to do a quick elevator pitch and really let me know about who you are as a person. And I am 1000% like looking, I'm not judging you. Like, I'm not going to be like, that sucked, get out of here, type of gateway. But I mean that I use that as a way that I need to be able to hear you communicate about the simplest form that exists. You communicate to others that you know what you want, right? What else we got? Good things to do, which we're gonna get into interview prep questions next week. We're gonna get into interview style engagements next week, because I want to go over a digital guide to interviewing, because a lot of these for remote jobs that you'll find in tech, they're being done over Zoom now, right? So we're going to talk about setting up a background, setting up the environment. We're going to talk about what to wear, right? Like this shirt is not appropriate. This hat is not appropriate for a remote job position interview. I'm not saying I'm also going to go get dressed up in a suit and tie for a suit job interview either, but there's a happy medium, right? Between t-shirt and pajama bottoms to, being fully dressed up and looking like I'm about to report for CNN tonight. That's one thing that I can actually talk to. I have had individuals that I have gone to talk to on a live chat, see if they wanted to roll, and they were literally in their pajamas and a t-shirt. I was like, wow, okay. And then I have never ended an interview so fast, because they said the words. I'm not going to repeat what they said. I'm just going to start off the sentence with what they said, and that was, "I'm not racist, but." When I heard that, I was like, I'm not hiring you, but I'm done with this interview. Like there's no way I can trust you as an individual. What are some good things that I've seen in interviews too? I somebody corrected me on a technical assumption I made that was wrong, and they did so in a meaningful way without being snobby. And I took it, and I immediately went, you know what? My coffee hasn't kicked in today. Thank you very much. Yeah, you are 100% correct. That sounds excellent. The only reason why they ended up not getting that position, that job role, was there was a major mismatch in what they were looking for salary compensation by like 50 grand a year. Ugh. Can't make that one work. Some good. I'm trying to think of some really good ones that knocked it out of the park. Oh, I think so. Somebody asked me to interview somebody randomly. Was not expected. This individual took the appointment time, even though they had just started their vacation and they had literally just gotten off the plane. But they took it, and they sat down and they opened up and they said, hey, look, please understand. I just started my vacation today, so I am in an unusual place at a coffee shop, but I at least have an internet connection. I'm here to talk to you, and I've got the headphones in, so let's have a conversation. I was like, you're already winning. You know what I mean? Being able to, that committed to the job and the role, to be able to sit down and actually focus for a second with everything moving around behind you and around you. And I thought it was one of the most professional things that I've ever seen, that they were able to take control of a situation in a public place and still be able to communicate effectively, you know, that they were out at a coffee shop. It was wonderful. It was amazing. So, I see somebody, IT, full alpha just in case they ask you to stand. Yeah, that one's good. That's pretty good. If you guys are wondering, I am wearing pants. Let's see. Top entry to mid-level certs you would recommend to get there, Leonardo Gutierrez. Top entry to mid-level certs. Sorry, I misread that. Entry to mid-level certs. It depends, again, on what your job is, period. Like what job do you want to work? If you ask me about pen testing versus IR versus engineering, I'll have different answers for you. Mid-level, I would be an idiot to not say CISSP. It is by and far will get you the most bang for your buck to go and get a CISSP once you have 5 years of experience. I would consider that to be mid-level, and I would consider that very important to go and get that certification. It is just aggressively out in front by how much it's requested by companies. What do you think is worth most? Soft skill certs or experience? Ooh, that one is good, Dev. What do you think is worth more? Soft skill certs or experience? I think you meant soft skills certifications or experience. I got it now. Experience, especially if you're walking into a role that you've already been doing, experience will always win out. A certification is just a snapshot in time of a knowledge level that a company says that you have, right? Realistically, experience will actually show that you have the job and the skills. Soft skills are, I don't want to really undervalue what soft skills are extremely important in business and IT and tech, because you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to get along with people, right? You can't be a prick. There's a couple things in there, right? But I will deal with a bad-tempered contractor who can get the job done, right? Not going to be my favorite person or individual, but yeah, there's a lot of different ways that you can work with that. MacBook M1 or the Alienware, which is better for ethical hacking, cybersecurity? Oof, boy. Ooh, Bob had a baby, he's a boy. Let's go. Mac is probably not what I would recommend for cybersecurity, though there are 10,000 in the world that would argue with me constantly. And I would here's what I would say when it comes to one, you don't need a high-end computer for ethical hacking. You don't. But two, MacBooks and virtualization software and stuff like that, sometimes it works. Sometimes it works well, and sometimes there's no issue whatsoever. Other times, it's a big pain in the ass. Whereas you have a bit more control over Windows systems, and you're able to virtualize instances a little bit better. Again, a lot of people are going to come at me in the comments because that's it's like saying which team is better. You know, name Go Sports team. That was a bad analogy I just used. But anyway, yeah. Again, I would more so focus on core counts, thread counts, RAM definitely. Having a lot of RAM is pretty important in cybersecurity devices. Yo, Dev, calm down, man. Yeah. So, and keep in mind that I've had people right now that, so just so you guys know, I don't know if people know this or not, I read most of the customer service tickets that come across for any of the issues you're having at INE Live. Or I'm sorry, INE. I read a lot of those tickets. The most frequent people that are having issues are the ones that I've noticed have been with Macs. Okay. But yeah, it's 31 way, 70 another. Cool. Well, guys, you know, believe it's that time. Oh. So, wanted to remind you guys that on Mondays, I've got Jack of All Trades that goes. We're going to start over on Twitch. It's with twitch.tv/SecITGuy. It's on my channel. And it is starts at 6 p.m. until I get tired. There's realistically, I'm going to aim for around 3 hours. But, you know, last time I went like 4.5 or whatever. And it is just a chill session. I put on music that we can listen to. And I go through and I talk. And I just build stuff live. I share my screen out and we go. With that, we are definitely coming to the end of the night. And I want to thank my mods for their ongoing work. And I want to thank you, yes, you, so much. Chat for coming to hang out. And I really do hope that you enjoyed yourself. Please hit ! Discord. Join us for the after party in there. And also, just remember that we have someone going on live right now. I believe we were going to have DJ BSEC in the house over on Twitch as well coming up. If you are unfamiliar with DJ BSEC, he is one of our friendly mods who helps us out frequently in the community, and he's getting really good at mixing up some music and playing some stuff live over on Twitch. So it is a good time. But hit ! SecIT Guy. Join me on the socials. Add me on. I don't mind doing any type of career mentoring, help, supply, whatever I can do to do my best. You can ask a couple people in there. We talk frequently. So, yeah. But here's a cheers to you guys, okay? Another day, another bender. No retreat and no surrender. Thank you all. Have a great time. And I will see you on Monday. Hey, thanks for watching. I want to thank Neil and the Cyber Insecurity channel for providing a place to have real conversations with real people. Feel free to throw a like or to follow me on the socials in the description. Please remember to click subscribe, hit that notification bell, and if you want to see other videos, click that stuff that's all over the screen. See you next time.